Okay.
Well, do I look ugly? No answer. All right. Welcome back to the pre-wrap. This is episode 4. Wow. We have a whole month underneath our belt, Lucy.
We're missing.
I know, and it's so sad because
key member.
We're missing a key member today. Catherine will not be here this week, which is really unfortunate.
It's so sad.
But that's okay. Lucy and I are gonna try to tag team this, and hopefully, hopefully it works. I have faith in us.
I have faith in us too.
I have faith in us.
We'll do it for Catherine.
Yeah. Shout out Catherine. Okay. Also, the elephant in the room. Last week we talked about how we abandoned the ugly studio. And we're back in the
We're
Uggo.
back.
We're back in the Uggo now, which is really unfortunate.
It's unfortunate because our audio genius, Catherine
oh my God,
is not here, so we had to revert back.
We had to revert back to the prehistoric setup. Unfortunately, that's just the way it had to be based on our skill set.
But we'll be back.
Catherine.
We'll be back in the...
We will be back in the more beautiful space very soon. We also forgot to mention last week, before we start off, that we are on Spotify now. And we're on Apple Music. And, of course, we're on YouTube.
Right.
So if you, for example, this week, if you are oh my God,
it's
the ugly,
so ugly we can't look.
We actually can't look. Then you can just go on Spotify and you can listen to our beautiful voices because the audio is really nice. But also, if you just think that we're that beautiful and you want to watch, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay, so we have quite a few things on the agenda for this week, but we're going to start off with just a basic kind of
quick little recap.
Yeah, so Lucy, do you want to
I'll give a little recap. Yeah. Well, last week I was wearing my loser outfit because I called Michigan over Vanderbilt, which was wrong.
And I was with you too.
So were you.
So don't worry.
But anyway, then at the end of the episode, I was like, Ohio State.
Over Iowa.
Lock it in. I really believed. They lost by 21 points. So,
yeah. And that was really surprising.
Right. Okay, exactly.
And I don't think anyone thought that it was going to be that much of a blowout, if I'm being honest. So
right. They did move up in the rankings. Last week I was saying they should be 10 where Iowa is. Clearly, maybe not. But they are 11 now.
Right.
So
maybe we didn't call the game right, but the AP voters do agree with us to some extent that they're better than they've been given credit.
I think at that point when they met Iowa and Ohio State, they were both on 7-game winning streaks. So now Iowa 8. So good job, Jenna.
And you know what? A 7-win streak that's impressive regardless.
I stand by that. The fact that Ohio State has been kind of underrated.
I agree.
Throughout the season. They're also missing Kylie Kitts, I think, for the second game because she has a shoulder injury. And she's a 6'4" guard. They only scored 14 points in the paint during that game, which is, I'm pretty sure, a season low. And so obviously, okay, you're forced to take outside shots, and they shot 35% from the field when they average around 46%.
Right.
So,
and also to Iowa's credit, Hannah Stuelke she is a veteran at this point. She's played in really big games and had really big performances. So I don't think that and it's not out of the question that Iowa would be able to stuff them in the paint.
Of course. Also, speaking of veterans, Taylor McCabe left the game at the very beginning with a season ending or career ending. I think their coach she made it seem like it was a career ending situation because she's a senior.
Oh my gosh.
And it was an ACL tear. So
wow,
that's horrible.
That's really horrible.
But then that's when they're starting a starting guard for them, and they still won by 21 points. But that's horrible.
Yeah. Shout out to Taylor McCabe. Sorry about her. Or sorry for her.
Yeah.
You never want to see anyone go down like that. But I feel like it is a testament to Iowa that they were able to rally without such a key piece. So I think that's, as horrible as it is, it's a good sign for them going forward. Yeah.
And then pivot real quick to our other game. Vanderbilt no longer undefeated and in spectacular fashion. They were blown out
by South Carolina.
Blown out.
And South Carolina was definitely on like a revenge trip.
For sure. You don't want to be facing South Carolina after they
had lost. Yeah. After they had lost to Oklahoma as well.
Yeah. 103-74.
Yeah, that was 103-74 is.
And it was immediate from the jump. Like,
yeah, they were on a tear.
They were on a tear. They had South Carolina had 33 points in the first quarter.
Yeah. So I think Vanderbilt, like, I don't even feel like I can say that they ever came close. Like,
not really.
I'm kind of searching through my mind.
They were within 11 going into the half, and then like almost like super early into the third quarter, it was like a 15-2 run for South Carolina, and then you're like, okay, and then they just ran it up.
Yeah, I think again, like kind of what we were talking about with Michigan last week, South Carolina really put a bunch of focus on Michaela Blakes.
Yeah, she was their highest score though, 23 points, and then I think there's only one other person who scored in the double digits.
Right.
She also had 5 turnovers though, which is I think
a season high for her in turnovers. Yeah. So it kind of seems like that's even though she was able to still score.
Yeah.
More.
Vanderbilt had 16 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah. What was it? That's like more than their season average, right?
They averaged like 12.
Yeah.
And so then they had 4 more in the second half. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's not good.
No, and they just seemed like I don't even know, like frazzled, unprepared for South Carolina, which is surprising for them. And
I know. I don't really know what happened.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm questioning is like, how much does this tell us about South Carolina making the decision to go on a tear after losing, and how much does this tell us about Vanderbilt being unprepared? I think this tells us more about South Carolina than it tells us about Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I agree.
But
yeah, Vanderbilt. But I am like, you knew they were coming for blood after they lost Oklahoma, and you just went into their arena and got blown out.
Yeah, that's really it was really surprising, because I feel like every time I've seen Vanderbilt play, well, they've won. They've been undefeated up until this point. But even in the times where it's been shaky, like specifically in that Michigan game where it was like, okay, like they're really starting to like fall apart. Not really fall apart. Maybe that's a little too far, but they just looked tired. Yeah. They were making mistakes. They weren't making layups that they usually make, like things like that. Even when they were kind of had like cracks that were becoming obvious, like I still wasn't convinced that they were going to like lose the game.
Yeah,
but
they had some fight.
This one was
wow, yikes.
Yeah, it was like bad.
Yeah, they play. Their next game is Ole Miss, which is on the 30th, which is Friday. Today's the day we're recording this is the 28th, which is Wednesday.
Well, that'll be really interesting because Ole Miss is I
think they're like 18th right now.
So.
Yeah, I think pretty sure.
But I think Ole Miss will be a good test for them because this is one of those like sleeper SEC teams.
Oh wait, I lied. They're 17.
17?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I feel like Ole Miss is one of those like sleeper SEC teams where it's like maybe they haven't been super highly ranked, but like they've upset really highly ranked teams.
Yeah. And then
so that'll be a good test for them.
Speaking of maybe sleeper SEC teams, I think this isn't South Carolina's next game, but I feel like maybe their next game of consequence is hosting Tennessee on February 8th. So next week or in 10 days.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see.
But wow, Dawn had to have been happy.
Yeah.
She was definitely so mad about the. She made them lock in. She was like, guys,
you got it.
Lock in. Well,
and they did. Yeah, Dawn. There were a couple of times. Do you remember national championship game against UConn when Dawn was like shaking her fists and yelling at the sky, like words at like cuss words that I probably am not.
So I see that GIF everywhere.
Yeah, like you see that everywhere. There were a couple times where I saw her doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like against that Michigan, or no, not against Michigan, against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so I think that this was just a time when they couldn't let it happen again.
Yeah. No.
Because I don't even want to know what she's like in practice after a game like that.
No. Shudder. Shudder at the thought.
Shudder at the thought of it.
Shudder at the thought.
Yeah. So
those are our main.
Those are like our big takeaways of this week. I feel like Vanderbilt has a chance to bounce back, and we get to see their resilience kind of for the first time.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so now we're going to shift. Okay, shifting from college, we wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with the pros, especially related to what is happening in Minnesota right now. So federal immigration officers have killed 2 people, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, in Minneapolis during protests against ICE's occupation in
the past month.
In Minnesota. In the past month. What's happening there is really horrible. I feel like watching this, it almost feels like the city's like at a breaking point, or just it's like grief.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to watch, and obviously, activism has been like a big part of the W for a long time, and so we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what they're saying. Do you have a take us away, Lucy?
So on Sunday, I think, which was a day after. It was a day after federal immigration officers killed Alex Preddy. Breonna Stewart held up an Abolish ICE sign at player introductions, I think before one of their games.
An Unrivaled game?
An Unrivaled game.
Yeah.
This was at Unrivaled.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she was, like, disgusted, and she said everyone here, which at Unrivaled is feeling that way one way or another, so kind of maybe speaking broadly for the players there. And she said, we're quote, "We're so fueled by hate right now instead of love, so I wanted to have a simple message of abolish ICE, which means having policies to uplift families and communities instead of fueling fear and violence," end quote. And obviously, Stewie's wife is an immigrant, and so she said it hits closer to home, and she's still, her wife Marta is still working to get U.S. citizenship. So obviously it's personal for her, but like you said, WNBA players have, like, activism is kind of woven into the fabric of the league. They've always been outspoken. They've always kind of been ahead of the curve, even though, you know, maybe people don't notice because they don't have as much viewership. But in 2016, 2020, like most recently, they were, you know, they had shirts, they had demonstrations.
Yeah, the entire 2020 season was dedicated, the players dedicated the entire season to Breonna Taylor.
Right.
Yeah, and so I know that other players who are associated with Minnesota have also come out and spoken.
I think Natisha Heidemann said something. Obviously, Paige Beckers is from Minnesota, and she, I think, she won the free throw contest at Unrivaled last week and donated the $50K to like families. I think it was related specifically to food insecurity. She's kind of like giving back to the community. And then people outside of, I think Angel Reese posted something. So people outside of, you know, Minnesota, they don't have to be like specifically attached to the team or the city to care about it. And then Unrivaled itself put out a statement as well. Yeah. Obviously, like we said, the league has always been outspoken and involved in activism. The existence of the league is, like, inherently political. I mean, it's made up, I think the most recent report from the
Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sport in 2023 said that 63.8% of 141 players that were polled identified as Black or African American. Obviously, a large percentage belong to the LGBTQ plus community. So those players, just by nature of their identities, I think tend to be outspoken. And
I think they take it personally.
They do take it personal.
And it seems like a lot of them see their platforms as being bigger than just them, and really take the platform seriously when it comes to speaking about politics and especially like the occupation of an American city and the murder of civilians.
Also, I was just going to say that women's basketball players, like, they've always been outspoken, but they almost have, like, the most to lose. Like, if they're fined, if people turn away from them, like, they don't have huge viewership that, like, other leagues have, and they don't have the money.
Especially in the past, which I think makes the 2016 and the 2020 seasons, like, really stand out. Mm-hmm. So, in 2016, players were fined for wearing unsanctioned black warm-up shirts, which they wore to protest police brutality. And the fines were eventually reversed. And in 2020, Atlanta Dream players spoke out against their team's co-owner, who was the U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler. So she co-owned the Dream. She was running for re-election
against Raphael Warnock.
Yeah, Raphael Warnock. She had publicly opposed the Black Lives Matter movement, which, again, if this is a majority black league, like, that's something they're obviously going to take personally. Players wore Vote Warnock shirts, so publicly endorsing the candidate that was trying to unseat their team's owner.
And the people who organized it were Elizabeth Williams of the Dream, and then Sue Bird, who obviously at that time was playing for Seattle.
Yeah, and also, like, just to put into context, in 2020, this was in the Wubble.
Yeah, the
Throwback to the Wubble.
Yeah.
So all of these players were together, and then I think there were also, like, attention to discrepancies between the resources that the women in the Wubble had versus, like, the NBA bubble had, the mubble. Yeah, we're not calling it the bubble. The mubble had.
Yeah, the mubble.
And the same thing was happening in the NCAA tournament as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really crazy. The weight room debacle. Oh my God, like, that was really bad. So these were, like, really transformational seasons for women's basketball overall. Obviously, I think people kind of look at that season in the NCAA and they see it, but I think it's easy to overlook because that was such a big season in the NCAA and people were talking about it so much. It's easy to overlook, like, what was happening in the WNBA at that time, because it was just as transformational for them as well.
And it wasn't, I mean, maybe the 2016, 2020, like, you look at those seasons as, like, you know, a lot of people were speaking out, but again, like, the
viewership was not there.
It wasn't, it's not there. And the WNBA, like, they've been involved before. They just don't, like you said, they're just not seen.
Right.
So it's nothing new for them to be speaking out, and they're always kind of the leading voices, whether or not people are paying attention to them.
Exactly. So I think it just kind of makes sense for them to speak about this right now. And I'm honestly, like, I'm hoping to see more.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to see more. This is, I mean, it's just, this is, like, a different thing that's happening.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's definitely time.
Yeah.
Personally, I think so.
And I feel like some people go, it's not an athlete's responsibility to speak out, but, I mean, if you have a platform.
And I feel like that's never really been the case in the W. I feel like the more eyes that they've gotten, maybe the more they've heard that. But I just don't see that. I would be, personally, as a longtime fan, I would be disappointed if
I feel like it would be
were
uncharacteristic for
Yeah.
this league to be silent about anything, much less like this insane thing that's happening
Right.
in our country.
Exactly. So kind of a tough segue, but we're going to start talking about maybe more CBA type stuff, because we feel like the outspokenness in the activism that they do has kind of moved over into their labor relations.
Right.
And it kind of seems like that different people with different experiences doing these negotiations have different opinions on how it should be handled.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, because I feel like in years past, the players and a lot of the WNBA kind of seem to have been able to present themselves as really a united front.
Yeah.
And so this was a very interesting thing that I kind of picked up on.
All right.
All right, let's go. I feel like last week we talked a little bit about CBA, and I was watching some stuff online and have been reading more about it, and I kind of have, I feel like we've given a lot, we've talked a lot on kind of, we've joked about like the WNBA trying to like screw the players out of money a little bit on this pod, but I think like I want to take more of maybe a good faith look at like what the other side is saying, because specifically going back on January 8th, Nafisa Collier and Nneka Ogwumike, who are vice presidents of the WNBPA, they sat down with Katie Barnes at ESPN, and this was right before they entered the status quo period rather than extending the deadline again of the agreement. Okay. Or of the past agreement. Okay. So on January 15th, so about a week later, Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe release an episode of A Touch More, where they talk a lot about the CBA, and they invite Rebecca Lobo on to the podcast. So this was right after they agreed to enter a moratorium, basically saying we're not going to do free agency under the past CBA because it doesn't make any sense. Like we're going to wait until there's a new one.
Right.
Okay. So they start talking about the negotiations, CBA, like how it's going from their perspective. So before I start, I want to like make clear their roles in this. Sue is the owner of the Seattle Storm. She's a partial owner of the Seattle Storm. That she played at for how long? Like over 20 years, was it? So moves from player, and she previously was a vice president or a president, like a leader of the WNBPA when she was a player. So she's looking at this from a very unique perspective. With that being said, she is part of the ownership group now. Right. Okay. And she's talking to Rebecca Lobo, who is a mainstay of ESPN, has worked at ESPN for over 20 years now. And ESPN is a league partner with the WNBA. Yeah. Okay. So technically, both of these people are on the opposite side of the negotiating table from the players. And I feel like that's I need to make that clear. And so I think this is just a good opportunity to like take a step back and like look at what maybe they are saying. They discuss the CBA twice on the podcast. Once is just between Sue and Megan, and then they talk about it again with Sue, Lobo, and Megan. Okay. The first part of the conversation seemed to be, and I encourage like everyone who is listening, who's interested, to go watch it for themselves and get their own takeaway. But my takeaway was, it seemed to me that Sue was very gently and very tactfully in her way that she does. She's like very good at communicating like this, suggesting that the WNBPA should tone down their rhetoric. Yeah. And she never outright said it, but she basically outlines like, she opens up the conversation saying, it's hard to know what a win is. And the good news is that it is already a win, that it already is a win, right? So she points out that the league has offered a revenue share model. And so just for context, when she was the WNBPA representative for the league, or for the players, she kind of set it up so when she was negotiating her last contract, the only thing they would have to worry about when they entered their next negotiation was revenue share. Like that, I've heard her say that before, like I know that's her mindset.
Okay.
So she is saying, we are in a rev share, which I feel like now is kind of being more widely reported on, like the specifics of the deal that the league has presented to the players. So she says, we are in a rev share. She says that the league is offering a $5.5 million salary cap, which is up from $1.5 million from the last deal, in addition to rev share. So this is like something that the players are guaranteed, a $5.5 million salary cap for an entire team. This is in addition to the rev share. She pointed out that in the old school model, where it was like players had a fixed salary, whether the business boomed or whether it totally
they couldn't grow with it.
Yeah, they couldn't grow. So they just had a fixed salary. Right. But now that they're in a rev share, she's saying this is not the case anymore. And she kind of pointed out like both sides, players and owners, she goes, we want the business to look good. You want to start talking nice about it. And she kind of points out, her and Megan point out that in a rev share model, the players and the owners are actually business partners now. And they say this new phase is a branding exercise for potential investors. So they're like trying to spin this positively. They're being positive. They're like, the reason this is contentious is because there's a lot of money on the line for both sides. And this is, for me, pretty telling. Megan says, eventually, you're going to have to stand on a podium with a microphone, both sides, and say, we're good, invest in us. So their perspective is that if outside investors are uncomfortable with the labor relations between the players and the league,
they won't want to be involved.
They won't want to put money in.
Yeah.
Because if there's a strike, and with this brand new media rights deal, like all this money is being flooded into the league at this time, and if there's a strike at this time, a lot of people can lose money.
Yeah.
So one thing that Sue pointed out was like a while ago, the league proposed more games, and there was kind of a to-do online being like, I can't believe they're asking for more games. People are going to get hurt, right?
Yeah.
And she said, obviously, people don't want more games in the same time span. But she pointed out that in a rev share model, more games means more money for everyone. So she was like, actually, like you should want to play more games. Like that's going to mean more money for you. So I think like they were kind of taking a step back and like framing this. They were being very they were being very positive, and they were being like very. It seemed not that they were like dancing around it, but they were trying to be like, look, like. The players already won. Like, the players already won. Like, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
Then Rebecca Lobo comes in at the end, and she basically says what they were saying, just, like, much more directly.
Right.
So I want you to, like, listen to some of these quotes that I wrote down for her and tell me what you think.
Okay.
She says, "It looks like a pretty amazing deal. If the players took the deal on the table right now, they should feel great about it. It seems like the sides are farther apart than they should be, though, for this point in time. I don't know that, from what I understand, and the people that I've talked to, that the owners have that much more that they can give in terms of revenue share, in terms of max salary. Calm and cool heads have always prevailed in these negotiations, and I'm hopeful that they do. Some of the rhetoric I've heard from their side is a little bit troublesome when a deal is presented that is over $1 million max salary and revenue share is called a slap in the face. Like, just use different words. And I'm worried that the players might be getting to a point where they might be losing some of the support from the public. And I think that's been a big part of this all along. Then she talks about the Pay Us What You Owe Us shirts at All-Star Weekend. She talks about the video of Kathy Engelbert that was put on the Jumbotron at the playoffs, and that which triggered boos from all kinds of fans. And then she says, it feels like some of that is waning. And some of it is the language we've heard from the Players Association. they need to be a little bit more careful of how they're articulating those things. Because if you're working whatever job, a max salary of $1.2 million, average salary of $500,000, if you don't think it's fair, that's fine. But don't call it a slap in the face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think definitely. Okay, first of all, it's interesting how much more like intense she is than like Sue. Sue's definitely kind of like, oh, like, I mean, she's also obviously close with a lot of the players.
Yeah, so I definitely think that Sue is closer with current players.
Yeah.
And so I think she's like trying to like toe this line of advice.
Right. Because she's definitely I feel like Sue must be having conversations with current players like right now also. Like
definitely.
whether it's giving advice or just kind of listening to them and their thoughts.
Right.
So I feel like she's had these conversations.
Yes.
And I don't know if she's thinking that nothing's coming from her conversations with people or she doesn't like maybe where it's headed.
One thing that I was curious about was like, why now? I feel like the rhetoric has been
combative
from the very beginning, and it's been climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing until finally like there was an inflatable rat outside of like an NBA store in New York.
Rat,
right. Not the inflatable rat. And so I think that like, I don't know, maybe that was a tipping point. Maybe she's been trying to figure out like how to talk about this in a delicate way. It also makes me wonder if they feel as if a strike could be coming.
Yeah, like maybe. Yeah, and like we said at the beginning, like they have stake in it. Obviously, Rebecca Lobo working for ESPN, Sue Bird having partial ownership. But I think could definitely be the case.
Yeah. And also, Sue kind of suggested in the conversation with Rebecca Lobo that, or when Rebecca Lobo came on, when they were talking, she suggested that there were other aspects of the agreement that she didn't think that the players had even really gotten to yet because they're so fixated on the money part, like the salaries and things like that. She said that like things like maternity leave, the core system, like housing. She's like, and she's saying probably. So I don't know that she knows this for sure, but she says probably haven't even given that time because they're stuck on the money. And she basically at the end said, "You've won. Like now go get more. It's a negotiation. Try to get more, absolutely." But I think that needs to be the reframing, which is very, very different than any rhetoric that we've seen from the Players Association.
Also, mind you, there's like a little bit over 100 days till the season's supposed to be starting. And like we said in our, like maybe 2 podcasts ago or whatever.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, we said what they have to have the expansion draft, free agency, and then the college draft all before then. So
I know. And the thing that was really interesting to me is like when Sue and Megan were talking about that didn't seem to like concern her all that much.
Okay.
And she's
they
like,
think they can do it?
Yeah. She was like, but this was like, it's the 28th today. They taped that podcast on the 15th.
Right. Still no word. There's still just
word.
nothing like happening right now.
So I think like, I don't know. And I think like what is interesting about Rebecca Lobo is like her saying that she feels like some of their support is waning.
That's what I feel like I can definitely agree with her. Or not that I think it's waning to a significant extent, but like the rhetoric of like them saying it's insulting to only be offered some amount of money that's way higher than what the average American has. Like,
I know. I think
like the average American's not going to be able to be like, oh, like I do feel really bad for you that you're only making
$1 million.
$1 million. Right.
I think like we've talked about it before. Of like maybe Twitter is a wonky barometer, but at the same time, like it's so important. I think to contextualize this conversation, like affordability is a huge buzzword right now in politics and everywhere. And so I don't think it's a stretch to say that most of the population feels like we're in an affordability crisis. And probably, I can imagine, would find it hard to sympathize with professional athletes who say that an average salary of $500,000 for 6 months season is a slap in the face.
Right. Even if, like, like, okay, comparing, like, WNBA players to NBA players, like, the gap in how much they're earning is obviously huge. But still to approach it and try it, because I think that the Players Association has been really trying to, like, get public support. Like, that's how they're putting pressure on the league, by having this public support. So, but I think this way of going about it is not going to be effective. Like, I think it's already kind of losing its effectiveness.
And I think the contextualization for me that I maybe hadn't thought of before was how different a rev share model works for players than, like, previous setups. Like, it is, like, at the end of this, if they get on a podium, if they come to an agreement and they get on a podium with Kathy Engelbert and they say, we did it, and look, we're all really good friends now, will you believe them?
No, of course not. No one's going to believe them.
So, I do think that there's a legitimate critique there.
Right.
Because if what you want is a rev share model, that means you want people to invest. Like, that is the only incentive to go for a rev share model, is if you think there's going to be enough revenue that you will make so much more. Which brings me to where we are right now. So the league proposed, in the deal that they proposed, a 70% net share. So a net revenue share model is meaning they share the revenue that they have after expenses. So the league receives the money, the owners use the money to pay for the charters, the practice facilities, like all those kinds of things, right? And then what is left after their expenses is split with the players. So they're proposing a 70% net sharing. The players want a 30% gross sharing model. So this is all the revenue that comes in before expenses. So for reference, the NBA is a 50% gross sharing revenue model. Okay. So they're asking for 30%.
Okay.
What I feel like I don't know for sure is how much more players would receive or gain from a 30% gross sharing model versus a 70% net sharing model.
Right.
Based on how they're acting, it seems like it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think there's any way to know how much more.
Yeah. Also, I think it was ESPN put out something today, and they said that there's just no, like, okay, so the league, the Players Association sent that proposal, right? And the league hasn't, like, they're still waiting for an official response because they sent that, a month ago. But the league thinks it's, I guess, not realistic.
They called it unrealistic.
It's unrealistic. Yeah. So they're just not sending. They're just, like, waiting for a different one to come through. So they're both just, like, waiting for something that's never going to come, question mark? Like, or is the Players Association going to send one that's, I guess, quote unquote, more realistic to the league? Which, like, I obviously, believe that the players deserve to be paid.
Right.
Like, we're saying this, but, like, I obviously think they need to be paid. But, yeah, it's kind of a question of what's realistic at this point.
Yeah.
And what's beneficial to the players, too.
Right. Like, I think what I think the reason why I kind of set up NECA and Nafisa's interview with Katie Barnes, I, like, talked about that before, is it seems like this is almost, I don't want to say it's a response because I don't know that, but I think the timing is interesting, is that we're coming to this place, a moratorium is called, and, like, we're still, or at that point the moratorium hadn't been called, but they say they're entering a status quo phase rather than extending the deadline, and they're still trying the same tactics. Like, I think it's really interesting because I also, my perception of Sue Bird is that she's very tactful.
Yeah.
She thinks a lot before she acts.
She does. She's also like well loved by players, by
the association that she's a part of, and also the players.
Like players, yeah, fans.
Right.
She's like kind of a perfect
little
person.
I know. So like she's very well regarded, and so it's just very interesting. And I think the thing that I was struck by was Lobo saying it seems like the sides are farther apart than they should be for this point in time. Mm-hmm. A big part of this conversation that I listened to was that previously, before a revenue sharing model, it seemed like the only tactic that players could use to get what they wanted was to like publicly shame the WNBA by saying like, you know, there are these discrepancies and this is what we're experiencing and this is unfair, and telling everyone about it, and that was like what worked for them. And so basically they were posing the question, like, now that these entities are technically business partners, like, is that the correct avenue now? And I think that like this that tactic is something that's been really ingrained into the league for good reason, and it's something that they use in a lot of other areas in their lives as well, especially when it comes to their activism. And I don't want to say that like their labor tactics that may or may not, I guess we'll find out, work. I'm not like really equating them to like any political activism that they're been a part of, but I think like what we're seeing is like this outspokenness is like very.
It's part of the league.
It's part of the league. It's part of their like identity. A lot of them, and so I think like the new challenge is like, how do we like, or what Sue and Megan are saying is like the new challenge is like, how do we like keep this fire for our activist causes, like our activism, and then like shift it when it comes like the way we deal with business. Okay, so that's our episode for this week. We actually are going to have a special episode next week because we have some scheduling things coming up. We're both going to be out of town, for school. So yeah, we kind of have a treat.
Catherine still won't be here,
Catherine
guys.
still won't be here.
Don't click away, though.
Don't click away!
She'll be back.
She's coming back.
Trust.
But yeah, we have kind of a special episode. We're going to try something different. And it kind of goes hand in hand with this activism conversation that we're having in politics and the W.
It'll be
or women's basketball, women's sports
basketball.
Women's sports in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, tune in and we'll see you soon.